Welcome to Insights, where we take a look at the four different personality temperaments and learn a little bit more about yourself and others around you so that we can get to know each other a little bit better. Today we're going to be focusing in on communication, whether it's verbal or nonverbal. We all communicate with one another, whether it's in a social setting or a work environment. And I'd like to give you some tips that you might want to apply so that you could be a better or more effective communicator in different environments. Let's take a look at our sanguine temperament first. Sanguines are very outgoing. They love to have fun. They like to make an entrance. They're usually loud, no microphone needed when they enter a room. They're very talkative. They like to tell stories. You always want to have a couple of sanguines at your social gatherings. They will bring the party. They will bring the fun. We were recently at a pool party and we were all having a great time. But the one lady who is a very strong sanguine, when she showed up, the tone of the party changed. More people were engaging, getting involved. You heard more stories being told, more jokes, and they just like to liven things up. They also usually have a huge laugh. Don't know why. It just goes with the personality. And so if you want to pick out different friends or family members, it doesn't take long to spot a sanguine. They're going to fall into those categories. You're going to be able to pick them out very quickly. They also talk with their hands. They make lots of gestures. They're going to see their hands moving constantly. With the nonverbal communication, that just adds to their stories and it makes them even more fun to watch and to listen to. Some suggestions for sanguines would be that you don't have to tell all the stories. If you come, try to remember that other people in the crowd or the group might also like to tell their stories. So try and dial it back a little bit so that you do not monopolize the entire conversation. Another thing that I'd like to suggest is some people do not like loud and boisterous sounds of any kind. And so if you are sensing that, try to dial back the volume of your conversation so that people will not be walking away from you or trying to not listen to what you're actually saying and zone out. A good rule of thumb for a sanguine would be if you're telling a story and all of a sudden you get interrupted, maybe you get a telephone call or someone rings the doorbell, and when you come back to the group, nobody asks you to finish the story, that might be a real tell for you that perhaps you're talking a little bit too much, because people have the tendency then to turn a deaf ear to what you're saying. And I'm sure what you're saying is very important and entertaining. But if you overdo anything, it's just that. You need to dial back so that you don't have people shut you out or tune you out. And work on people's names. You're so busy entertaining others, and names are very important. So at a gathering, when people are introducing themselves and you learn their name, try to think of an association that will help you remember their name later, or maybe even fit it into the conversation several times so that hopefully it will be cemented in your mind for the future. Let's take a look at the melancholies next. Melancholies are more perfect. They like to have everything be right. And so they are thinkers and they don't really share a lot. If you see them in a social setting, they might be the ones hanging back and listening to what everybody else is saying. They're kind of closed mind, and so they use very few gestures when they're talking. If you were listening to a song, it might be the sounds of silence would be maybe one of their favorite songs. They're more introverted at parties, and so this is something that melancholies could work on. Try to add a little bit of humor into your conversations. Don't be so serious all the time, because that's just kind of a killjoy. So you want to think of maybe a few stories that you yourself could share, or some jokes, but try and make them so that they're personal, so that you feel comfortable, because if not, they're going to come off and just kind of sink. They're just not going to go over. Try and lighten up and give some compliments. Melancholies don't usually give very many compliments because they feel like it's disingenuous. For instance, if someone is playing a game of golf and they are doing better than they did the last time you played golf with them, you might want to try and give them a compliment and say, hey, your swing's getting better. I can tell that you've been at the driving range, something like that. Now, are they ready for the big league? No, probably not. So a melancholy would kind of not want to give them a compliment because they haven't quite arrived, and they think of it as substantial behavior, not quite up to par. That is something that melancholies really need to work on, is encouraging others, giving them some compliments, some praise will go a long way. The cholerics, let's take a look at them, are very powerful people. Everything has to be work related. So when they go to a party, what are they going to talk about? Shop. They're going to try and bring in what's happening in their life, in their world. That will go so far. For instance, if you are a coach and you want to talk about last week's game or your team players this year, people will be courteous and they will listen up until a certain point, and then it's like they're ready to have different things added into the conversation. If you're a mother, stay-at-home mom, you might want to just talk about the children all the time. Again, people like to hear about your children. They might even want to see some pictures. But if you monopolize your entire conversation talking about them, it's going to get old really quick. So my suggestion to cholerics would be to try to watch more TV shows, maybe go to some movies, read some books, because that's something that you probably don't do a lot of. Everything's work related. And so then when you go to a party or you're out in a social setting, you're going to feel like a fish out of water, because pretty soon it's like, I don't have anything to share. Those people are talking about something that they attended or they went to, or entertainment-wise. And so try to engage by thinking outside the box a little bit and working on broadening your horizons so that you will have more information besides just shop to visit with. And also, you don't like when there's chit-chat. You find it to be kind of worthless. And so what you have a tendency doing, if you're a choleric, is if a sanguine is telling a story, you'll be patient, you'll be listening for a brief period of time, and then it's like, get to the punchline. I want to get to the end. You're going to have to fight against that, even if it means you have to kind of count to 10 and let the person finish whatever that they want to share, because if not, you're considered to be rude, and people don't like that. They like to have somebody else respect what they're going to say as well. And remember the 2 magic words. Fit those into all of your conversation, please and thank you, so that you don't come off as a know-it-all or bossy. Even if you have to fake it, you might think, okay, this person is a complete airhead. I don't really want to listen to anything they're saying. That's kind of how cholerics have a tendency to think. You're going to have to fight that and try to look for the good, because each and every person has lots of good qualities in them. And that body, that nonverbal language is going to come across, even if you're trying not to. So try to get in your head that that's just not going to fly, that's not going to go over. And you have a tendency to get too close to people when you're talking to them. So maybe back it up just a few steps so that they don't feel like you're overpowering them. And include a giggle or a laugh or two, and ask other people some questions, even if you already know the answers. The last temperament would be the phlegmatics. They are peacemakers, and so they will hang back and be quiet in social settings and also like in the classroom or in work environment, they might have some of the best ideas, but they kind of wait to be called on. They're the ones who at the end, the teacher might say, well, why didn't you share? And it's like, well, you didn't call on me. They are usually the ones who don't get their hands up in the air to be called on. And so that's something that phlegmatics need to work on. If somebody asks you, do you want chocolate or vanilla ice cream, and you seriously don't care, that's okay. But after a while, people are going to start saying, Johnny doesn't care. And they're going to start answering for you. They're going to start making up their minds that it's going to come across as if you're just not interested, like you've removed yourself from the conversation. So as parents, or if you're in the teaching profession, I would suggest that you have your son or daughter have to make decisions. Don't let them get by with just saying doesn't matter and shrugging their shoulders. Make sure that they can speak up. Phlegmatics, it's good if you ask other people questions, and maybe tell yourself, you know what, every 5 minutes or so, I'm going to at least say something. They use a lot of nonverbals in their communication. They're usually shaking their heads yes or shaking their heads no. So they are engaged. It's just not verbal. And again, then after a period of time, people start just kind of even forgetting to ask them. And then the rub comes when the phlegmatic says, nobody cares about my opinion. Nobody asked me. You can see how you arrive at that point. And so we want to try to avoid that by changing what we do a little bit to set the mood. I hope that these tips have helped you when you're thinking about yourself and others or people that you are working with or teaching. I always kind of like to end with a personal story. And so my husband is a pretty strong melancholy, and I'm probably a pretty strong choleric. And so I remember when we were first married, my mom was a very strong sanguine. She would get on an elevator and she would know everybody on that elevator by the time she got off, or they would all at least have heard one story, maybe two. So she was very, very outgoing. So whenever we took a road trip, which wasn't very often, my mom, from the time we got in the car to the time we reached our destination, she would be telling us story after story. She would talk about the corn out the window and how high it was going. There just wasn't any legs in the conversation. It just really no quiet time at all. So when I got married to my husband and we started taking road trips, I thought that was the norm. I thought that that's what would happen. Well, after about 5 years of marriage, I realized that that wasn't the case. Matter of fact, I had tried other things. I had tried to ask him questions on the way. I had tried to play music. I had tried all sorts of things to bring him out. But as we drove down the road, there was a lot of silence. And it was like I thought I was being punished for something in some way, or that there was just something wrong. All it was different. It wasn't wrong. And I'll never forget the time we made it from Omaha to Kansas City, and I decided I'm not going to say anything at all. I'm going to make him have to talk to me. And so when we got to Kansas City, we pulled in and parked. I'll never forget him getting out of the car and saying to me, you know, that was just the best trip ever. I just love traveling with you. So again, hopefully this will help you all understand your partners better, the people that are in your life, your sons or your daughters, and something like that will help you have better, effective communication. Thanks for joining us. See you next time.